Today is Monday, February 24th, 2018, and my name is ERIKA Gonzalez, interviewing BERENICE CONTRERAS for the Peak Preparatory Dallas Community Oral History Project at Interviewer's House. Okay, when and where were you born?
I was born in San Luis Potosí, Mexico. I was born January 18, 1987.
Where did you grow up through high school?
I grew up in Dallas, Texas.
What did you do after high school?
I went to a community college, and then after I went to work.
How was your experience living in Dallas? Or how has your experience been living in Dallas?
Despite of the challenges, I like living in Dallas because of the convenience and the work opportunities.
Okay, can you please go into detail about your job or where you work?
I work for an immigration law firm. I am a paralegal and a public notary.
And how long have you been working at your job?
I've been at my job for 9 years and 10 months.
What are your responsibilities there?
I am a supervisor. I am in charge of all the intakes and incoming mail, outgoing mail, the filing cases, going to the court, translating, and anything that has to be done, administrative work.
Okay. What has changed for you personally or mentally over the course of the years that you've been working there?
Many things have changed for me, but one of the most important things I think is dealing with people from different countries, different people immigrating to the U.S. People from Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, El Salvador, Guatemala, and many others.
Okay. What made you interested in working for the Immigration Law Office?
As an immigrant, I've always had... I don't know the word. As an immigrant, I've always had not an urge, but an interest. I like to help others because I went through that situation that I don't want everybody to fall or go through what I went through. I want to make it as easy as possible.
Okay. And how does the immigration process look like? Like, how does one situation differ from another? Or are they all the same? So if someone from, let's say, Mexico is doing the immigration process as to someone that's not from Mexico, or is the process the same for all?
The process is the same for all. Some of the situations may differ. For example, some people can legalize their status here in the U.S. Some have to leave back to their country in order to legalize their status. It just depends, the way you entered to the United States. Some came in with a visa, some came in illegally. So that is taken into consideration in the beginning of the process to see which way your process would continue.
And are the requirements for all the same? Or so there's different requirements for each person?
There's other requirements are the same if you're doing the same type of case, except for those cases that have criminal background cases in their past. For them, the requirements are a little different for the ones that have never violated any laws.
How so?
For example, if you've been arrested for any type of crime, then you would have to be placed under probation, parole, and if your case is dismissed, you have to, gather all the information. And, versus a person that's never had any criminal background, then the person only goes through the basic process.
Okay. So how do you play a part into the process? What do you do?
First of all, what I have to do is when I have a client in front of me, I have to interview them as well. I have to, ask them for just basic information, personal information. I have to ask for their biography. Then I go into questions about their criminal background, and which way or which law fits their situation. And then from there, I go into detail what documents they're going to need to be presented to the USCIS office in order for them to legalize their process.
What laws do you work with regarding immigration?
We do mostly adjustment of status, defer actions. Our law firm is so small that we don't go into many fields of the immigration. We just stick to the basic adjustment of status, consular processing, and defer action.
So, what has changed over the course of the years regarding laws, acts, requirements, or anything of that matter at your job?
Many things have changed. We've had 3 big rushes. One of the most important ones was defer action in 2012. But before then, we had late amnesty filers in 2005. After that, our next big thing was in 2007 when priority dates became available for different categories. The U.S. National Visa Center every month issues new visa bulletins for different countries. In 2007, Mexico had finally made a big impact and a lot of priority dates became available. So a lot of people was able to legalize their immigrant visa in that time. And then after that, it was our defer action was back in 2012, like I had mentioned before. That was major because a lot of our young community, a lot of our students were able to pursue with their educations because now they had a valid social security and were able to get their driver license, better job opportunities, and a way to continue with their education.
How did these 3 rushes impact where you work at the immigration law office?
Well, our job volume was extremely high. I had to work a lot of hours overtime. My regular schedule is from 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. During the big rush for defer action in 2012, I was there from 8 in the morning, sometimes to 6, 7 at night, just depending on our work volume for the day. Our daily taking cases are maybe 2 to 3. During that rush, we were taking sometimes 5 to 8 cases per day. Expectations were very high because we had to, as we were taking cases in, we also had to take cases out. So sometimes we had to close office hours to see clients and close them so we can actually have time to do our paperwork.
Okay. What do you think about the legalization of more people?
I think that the legalization of more people would really help our economy. It would really have a big impact because of all the illegal immigrants that we have in the U.S. now.
How would the increase of people help our economy?
Because they would have to invest their money in a lawyer in the U.S. government to pay for the fees, because every application that you submit to the USCIS consists of a fee. Every application you submit to the National Visa Center consists of a fee. Every application you submit to the U.S. government for passports, marriage license, consular processing, they all have a fee. So that would, have our money moving and more income. Our country would show a higher income.
Okay. How has the legalization of more people affected our community?
At the law office that I work at, trends show that over the past year, there was an 85% increase in the legalization of people, which affects our community by making it more populated, increasing the demand and supply.
How have you contributed to aiding those who are trying to become legalized?
Well, I try to help them as much as I can. Since I went through the process myself, I make sure that they have all the tools that they need before they finalize their case. When they come in for the first time, the attorney interviews them before they are passed down to us for the administrative work. I prepare them as to what clinics they have to go to for their medical exams. What is the interview is like. What questions are asked during an interview, and how long does the process take for them to get an answer. If you're to get legalized here in the U.S. and you have to go to an interview with an immigration officer here in the U.S., for example, the Dallas field office, you get the answer, right then and then, and you'll get your green card within the next 30 days. Now, if you go to the consulate, at the embassy that you have to attend to, you have to wait, for a decision. A lot of the people have to submit waivers that, even though they are interviewed, they have to still wait for an answer whether they're going to be pardoned or not for the law that they broke when they came into the U.S. illegally. So sometimes they have to stay in Mexico for anywhere from 3 to 12 months until their case is decided whether they're going to be able to come back in legally or not. And for those people that don't have to submit a waiver, then those people are allowed to come in within the next 3 to 10 days, depending on how fast the consular can turn in their paperwork and process their visa to come into the country.
So you mentioned that you went through the process yourself. Tell me more about that. How did that feel, or how was it like for you?
In 2011, my husband was illegal here in the U.S. So we actually started the process in 2008. Because of the news and everything that was going on at the time, we thought there was going to be an amnesty or laws were going to change to favor in us, because we didn't want my husband to leave the country because of our family being separated. Nowadays a lot of kids grow up without their father and mother and in the same household, so we didn't want our kids to go through the same situation. So we held off the case for a little bit until we decided that it was time, that the time is now, that if he didn't legalize then with things changing every day, laws are only getting tougher instead of easier. There's been a lot of deportations, so we were very scared, but the whole process that I went through with my husband was what my clients have always dealt with. So I was able to experience. I've had training. In 2005, I went to training in El Paso. In 2010, I went to training in El Paso. But training is not like going through the whole process yourself.
So have any of your job experiences interfered with your personal life? Has, working at the immigration law office, has that interfered with any of your personal life?
It has, because, sometimes when there's couples that have kids, small children, I always think, that could be me. If we weren't to be so lucky that my husband was able to legalize, and he left the country in January, and by April he was back. He was only gone for, 3 months. But there's those families are being separated for 12 months. Those families are being separated for 2 years. And then there's those families that are separated for the rest of their lives, because the legal person cannot, relocate in Mexico because this is their country. And there's the illegal side that can no longer come to the U.S. because if they do so, then they're going to be detained in jail for the rest of their lives. So it puts you in an unbalanced scale because you don't know what to do.
If you could have the opportunity to change your job, would you do so?
No, I would not. I love my job. I like the day because there's not a day where I live the same thing. There's always different thing, a different experience, different clients that you communicate with, and you learn so much from different cultures.
So, what's your favorite part of working in the Immigration Law and Reform Office?
I would say is when I see my clients finish the process and they come back and they have a smile on their face and showing their gratitude towards you. The effect, the fact that they don't ever have to go back into, going back to sleep that one night and saying, is my husband going to come in today or not? The fact that, is my husband going to have a job or not? Being legalized, that if you can't find a job here, you'll find a job there, because now you have a valid Social Security. Now you're going to be able to have a driver license. So if you get stopped, it's only going to be a minor traffic ticket, and it's not going to escalate to anything else. So the fact that I get to see my client, my mission accomplished, makes me satisfied.
So now that you mentioned about the Social Security, and once they are legal, they are able to have a Social Security, what's the importance of the Social Security for a person living in the country?
For employment purposes, also benefits, for example, and insurances for auto and health. I can tell you from prior experience that when you don't have, for example, my husband, when he wasn't legal, our car insurance, our health insurance was a lot higher than what it is now because he has the Social Security. So things like that, the difference it has a big impact. Now, for those that don't have a Social Security, they're at risk of using, a fake Social Security. For example, some Social Securities are invented off their top of their heads. Also, some, go to different locations to purchase a Social Security, illegally, which is, it's a big problem because, even though they worked and even though they've worked for many years, they're, at the end of the day, their benefits are not validated because it's not a Social Security. When they're, even though they're paying taxes and everything is done correctly during the, throughout the year, at the end of the year, none of those benefits are put into that person's hard work. And, a person has been here illegally for, say, 30, 50 years, and they are now 60, 70 years, they're not getting any Social Security checks because their name or them as a person, they're not in the system. So it's a ghost. So that money is not being, given to them. So they have to live off their children or other family members, or they might still be working, on their own.
So approximately what is the duration of the legalization process? How long does it take for you to do for the person to do the paperwork, go through the interview, go through court and everything that has to be done in order to become legal?
Well, if you are adjusting status here in the U.S., the process can take anywhere from 3 months to 6 months when you're filing husband and wife. When you're filing child to parent, that can take anywhere from 8 to 12 months because the laws changed so much that now they're not interviewing parent and child unless they have a doubt that it's their biological child. But versus filing your status in you're going through consular processing, that process can take anywhere from 12 to 18 months, depending on how long immigration takes to approve their waiver.
So, what would you consider being the hardest step of the process for the family? Like, what is the most challenging part? Is it getting the documents, or is it being able to prove that they've been here for a certain amount of time, or what is it?
I think it's completing and having all the requirements to process with their waiver. Their waiver is the most challenging because it's to the discretion of the officer whether they approve it or not. Some families have, a very sick immediate relative, or only one in the household is the only one that works, and that's the illegal person. And if the waiver is not approved, then that puts that family in a financial instability. So that's the hardest, knowing if they're going to approve the waiver or not.
Why is it important for people to have the opportunity to become legal? Why is it important for them to take into account and complete this lengthy application in order for them to be able to live in America?
Well, the demand for educated workers increases as the population increases. Therefore, action allows for people in 15 to 30 years of age to have the same opportunity as an American citizen.
How so?
Because it motivates them to, for the ones that have already dropped out of school, to go back into school and to pursue a career. We're in demand for doctors, lawyers, teachers, just any educated field, firefighters, policemen, government, people that we need for this country to stay as stable as possible.
Have you experienced any situation where you knew someone or was related to someone that had certain barriers with their education or job due to the less opportunities that were offered to them prior to the deferred action?
I actually do. I have a friend that immigrated to the United States when she was 2 years old. She went to elementary, middle, high school here in the U.S. and also went to college. She paid out of pocket. Tuition was paid from her and her parents working in the flea market. They actually paid. She graduated, received her title, and when the deferred action law was available, she did not qualify because she was already over 30 years of age. So she's now at home with a title in her hand, but because she has no Social Security, and because she doesn't qualify for deferred action, she cannot pursue her career.
Can you go into detail about your friend's current position as an illegal immigrant?
She's currently working in the flea market where her parents initially started their business. They sell furniture, and she's there with them. And, and that's the sad part, of the immigration laws. Even though she's a college graduate, she is stuck working in the flea market selling furniture instead of working in her field.
So, does she have an opportunity into becoming legal, even though she didn't qualify for the deferred action? Is there another option for her, or?
There is. Her fiance is in the army. Her fiance is a U.S. citizen, and as soon as they marry, she can start her process to legalizing because she's married. And because he is in the army, she gets advantages. There is a law that can, help her not leave the country. And even though she entered the U.S. illegally, she can still legalize in the U.S. because her husband serves our country.
So you mentioned earlier that you were born in Mexico, San Luis Potosí, correct?
Correct.
So do you think that because you were born there, it has made you become biased about your opinions because you were born over there instead of in America?
Yes, but to a certain extent, I think. Maybe if I wasn't born in San Luis Potosí, Mexico, I wouldn't feel the way I feel about illegal immigrants now. The fact that I was born in Mexico and lived in Mexico until I was 7, helped me see the difference. If I wasn't here in the U.S. legally, I wouldn't have the same employment opportunities. I wouldn't have the same education opportunities. My children wouldn't have the same education opportunities either. In Mexico, poverty is one of the main concerns. And being here in the U.S., you don't suffer as much, of that.
So, do you think if you were born in America, your job interests would have changed and you would not be working at the immigration law office?
Maybe because since, I previously said, since I went through the process myself and with my husband, I think I would maybe be doing something else, maybe a teacher or just something else.
Can you go into details about the difference of being a legal permanent resident versus a citizen, American citizen?
Being a legal permanent resident and being a U.S. citizen differs in many ways. One of the things that makes a difference is that, when you're a resident, you don't get as many Social Security benefits as when you are a citizen. When you legalize into the country, you first become a legal permanent resident, then you become a U.S. citizen. Throughout that process, it takes 5 years, unless there is exceptions. For example, when you're married to a U.S. citizen spouse, then in 3 years you can apply for your citizenship.
What can you tell me about citizenship abroad, or how does that work out?
Citizenship abroad is, for example, for U.S. American citizens born in the U.S. and you are expecting a child and say you have to travel overseas, and you are to have your child overseas, as upon your return back to the U.S., your child will be considered a U.S. American citizen as well, because the child has one parent that's U.S. citizen, or both parents, might be U.S. citizens. For example, if you were to be, expecting a baby and you have to travel to, say, Colombia, and during your trip in Colombia, you have your child, and your baby's going to be considered Colombian because he was born there. But since you are a U.S. citizen, then upon your return to the U.S., then you would have to file for a certificate abroad, and that would make your child a citizen, which is dual citizenship. Now he's a citizen from Colombia because he was born there, but is also a U.S. citizen because the parent is a U.S. citizen.
So that would only work for citizenship and not for those who are residents?
Correct, only for citizenship.
So how would it work out for those who are residents?
For residents, if you were to have a child in Mexico, then you would have to go through the process of filing a petition, first of all, for your child. Meanwhile, you can request a humanitarian visa to see if your child can reside within the U.S. while the process, takes the time to finalize. If not, then you would have to stay in Mexico until your child's process is ready to finish or to proceed.
So are there any other programs that are offered in order to help the people that live in Central America?
There's actually a program for people from Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras. Their program is called TPS, which is temporary protected status. And what it does is very similar to deferred action. They have to show that they were here for from a certain amount of time to now, and that they've resettled within the U.S. All this time, and they can, have a work permit, file for a work permit with TPS, and also their social and their driver license. For them, it's easier to obtain a travel document, which is a Form I-131. And what that travel document does is it allows them to travel outside the country for only certain trips. You can't do it for pleasure. You would have to do it either for educational trip or because someone in your family is very ill.
So for emergencies.
For emergencies.
So the TPS compared to the deferred action, is there the same amount of people applying for those, or what would be the?
No, the deferred action program is actually larger because it covers every country. Doesn't matter what country you're from, as long as you meet the requirements of being in the U.S. on or before June 15, 2007, and you had to be 15 years of age, during that time, in order for you to apply for it. And for TPS, it's only for people from Central America. So TPS doesn't benefit people from Mexico or people from Colombia or other countries. It's just Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. And deferred action is open to everybody.
Regarding the benefits that the people receive, would they be the same as the deferred action and the TPS?
The benefits for TPS and the benefits for deferred action are the same. They both get a work permit, and they issue, once you have a work permit, a valid work permit, you can get your driver license and your social security card.
So from your experience, what would you say is the most common reason for families migrating into the U.S.?
The main reason, if you ask me now, as if we speak today, is because of security. Mexico, the crimes has elevated so high that a lot of families are very scared and don't want to reside in Mexico any longer. So they decide to migrate here to the U.S. so they can be, one, to be reunited with their spouse, and second is for security. If you were to ask me this question in 2000, early 2000s, late 1990s, I would have to say because of the economy. In Mexico, there's a lot of poverty. So they decide to migrate to the U.S. because the job offering is a lot better. The pay rate is a lot better. In Mexico, they might pay you $70 to $90 per week, and like at factories. And here, where you get paid, anywhere from $7 to $10 an hour, which a week, if you work 40 hours a week, that's around $400. So the poverty in Mexico is very high, and so that's why they're looking for a better future.
What about for those who aren't migrating from Mexico into the U.S., that are migrating from other places like Central America or?
I would say it's the same reason. A lot of our clients in El Salvador are migrating because of the gangs. The gangs is same thing as the crime and the poverty as well. Every country, is leaving in their country for that same reason, because there's not enough security.
So what led you to get this job?
Well, my mom, we migrated in 1997. My mom started working for the attorney that I recently work for now in 1999. My mom is a housekeeper, and she's been with them since 1999. As I was growing up, I would go visit where my mom's job, and there, and the attorney would start taking me to her office, showing me around, and eventually I felt like I wanted to be part of that, office, because I like the way they help people, and immigration has been a very interesting topic to me since I've known about it.
So, from your experience and working there, do you think that the immigration laws have been effective?
In ways, yes. Obviously, some laws came or are not positive to everybody in every way, but it's helped a lot of people. Deferred action has made a big difference for the children, for people that really want to continue and be educated and have better job opportunities. But different aspects, in my personal opinion, I would say yes.
Okay, so what can you tell me about the Arizona law regarding its benefits or non-benefits to immigrants?
Well, the state of Arizona doesn't allow illegal immigrants to, have a driver license. As to New Mexico, New Mexico is now allowing illegal immigrants to obtain a driver license, and they both have a different point of view. Arizona says, well, if you're not legal here, you shouldn't have no benefit. New Mexico might see it as, if I give you a driver license, I'm going to be able to track you down, if you commit any crimes at any time. As also, Arizona doesn't allow people that are illegal immigrants to rent out a place, to live in. As for example, here in Texas, there's many places that if you have a tax ID number, that they'll rent you out a residence, or some people, they'll ask you for a higher down payment if you don't have a Social Security, because that would be the way of them not losing if you were to make any damages to their property.
So, how often would you say that laws are changing?
There's really not a set time. Just you have to. Immigration law is so difficult. You just have to take day by day. And it's a big topic now in the news because everybody wants a reform. Like there was a reform back in the 1980s. There was a reform that benefited a lot of people, and that's what they want now, to have a second reform to benefit all the people that have been here for a long period of time. But as we speak, laws can change, every 6 months, every 3 months. There's not a set timing because there's different laws in different areas.
So for those who obtain residency, is there a form for their residency to be revoked?
Yes, there is. When you commit a crime that is to the judge's discretion, whether they would give you a second chance, or if not, you would be placed under deportation or under removal. And you would have to also see, besides your criminal actions, you would also have to see an immigration judge, which will decide whether you have a second chance to stay in the country and fight for your green card. Because even if you've been a legal permanent resident for over 20 years, that doesn't give you the right to act or try to receive the same benefits as a U.S. citizen would receive. U.S. citizens cannot be deported or removed because they are U.S. citizens, but an LPR can. So, say there's occasions, we had a couple of months ago, we had a 73-year-old man that was placed under removal because he had committed a felony in 2005 and was placed under removal and went to see an immigration judge because of his previous incident with his crime or his criminal actions. So luckily, he was very lucky, and the judge, saw the attorney presented his case. He has children that were born in the U.S. His spouse is a U.S. citizen. So the judge gave him a second chance, maybe because of his age, maybe because of his relatives. I really wouldn't be able to tell you why he was given that second chance, but he was, and they told him that was the first and last time that he was going to have that chance. So next time that he decides to commit a criminal violation, then his green card would be at risk once again.
So does this pertain to everyone, or are there some people that are treated differently because of who they are?
No, not necessarily. It doesn't matter if you're a celebrity or if you are a normal person. The laws are by furthermore the same for everybody. It doesn't matter who you are. If you violate the law, then you're going to be seen as in the same aspect as anybody else that, might not be a celebrity.
So, how do the benefits differ from those who come in illegally to those who come in with a visa?
Well, for the people that come in illegally, they have to go through the process, like I mentioned before, as, to turn in their petition. Once their petition is approved, they go through National Visa Center. Once National Visa Center is done with their process, they send it directly to the embassy in the country they are from. And then they'll wait their decision. For the people that come in with a visa, their process is taken into consideration here in the U.S. For example, you filed your petition with USCIS, and then you are interviewed. You have to attend an physical interview with an immigration officer with your jurisdiction. For example, people that live here in Dallas, they have to go to the Dallas field office, which is located in Irving, Texas. And then they can have their process done within anywhere from 3 to 8 months.
So overall, what would you say your stance is on immigration?
Well, despite the challenges, I like my job. I like what I do. And for 9 years and 10 months that I've done immigration law, every day is a new day. Every day you learn something new.
Well, it was a pleasure talking to you and interviewing you. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to speak to me about immigration and the trends that followed.